better early than never. And then there's a remote control there too. You can zoom on the remote control.
Actually, this is perfect. This looks
Works
good.
for you? Okay. Namaskar, everybody. Thank you so much for joining. We are so happy to have a few people here in the center live, and those of you who are either going to watch this on YouTube live stream or perhaps on recording. Namaskars to all. Happy Memorial Day weekend, and we honor all those who have served their country to make this, well, to try to make this a free country. So let's hope this continues on. It's a great experiment that's been going on for 250 years. So let's keep it going. At any rate, so so we're gonna our topic today, by the way, is we're gonna honor Swami Vivekananda, and he's tied very much to the U.S. It's interesting. We're gonna discuss some Swamiji behind the scenes today. I think this will be exciting for you guys. So this isn't just the front-facing Swamiji. We're gonna get under the hood, so to speak, and show Swamiji. But remember, his Mahasamadhi is on July 4th, and there's a really interesting connection there of Swamiji coming to the States and the underlying true founding principles of this country, not the ones that may be used propaganda-wise, but the ones that the founding fathers actually understood to be the ideals, and they're very high ideals for this country. So it's a shining beacon that can be, the potential is amazing. So let's start with a chant. Om Sato Ma Sadgamaya, Maso Ma Jyotirgamaya, Mrittirma Amritam Gamaya, Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Om. It is from the unreal to the real, it is from darkness unto light, it is from death to mortality. Peace. Okay, well, that's a wonderful chant. So as I was saying, the idea of this weekend, Memorial Day weekend, and I just thought we would honor Swami Vivekananda on this day. And of course, the 4th of July weekend is one that we honor him as well. But I think this is a natural, because the idea of this country being something special for blending, a melting pot, and blending of the best of all the world, of all the cultures, of all the traditions. And Swami Vivekananda being the first real master of India to bring the pure teachings of India to the West and into America in 1893, and of course to London and so on. So we've been reading the Swami Vivekananda's complete works. I don't know why he keeps on doing that, but it's okay. Don't worry about it.
Yeah.
It probably isn't anything special, but we've been reading Swami Vivekananda's complete works. Now, these are compilations of Swamiji's talks, and as was compiled by Goodwin, the amazing stenographer. He was a real character. Apparently, you're going to read something about him in here today. But we have a lot of what Swami spoke and talked with from a couple of sources. Goodwin recorded a lot of his talks, and otherwise they would have been lost to posterity. Of course, there was no sound recording devices in Swamiji's time, so there was no recordings. And some that say they are actually not real. So sadly, but what the complete works are things that he spoke in the public. So he spoke them and gave them in lectures, he gave them in talks, he gave them in classes that he did at Thousand Oaks and these types of places. And we also have some, Sister Nivedita, of course, she wrote about him and what he, so we have some of what he said through her. Some of the brother monks, of course, wrote their reminiscences of him. But there really wasn't a lot, and there has been in the order a kind of an effort to downplay any miraculous or supernatural or amazing things of Swamiji or any of the Swamis. Maybe Swami Brahmananda, a few things get snuck out, but a lot of that stuff has been kind of not expressed, or it was not wanting to be released. Now, I've got a book that's kind of an interesting, and so I have a little bit of an inside track on this one. And I'll tell you the story. It's called Swami Vivekananda in London. And it's written by Swami Vivekanandaji. And some of you maybe know Swami Vivekanandaji. And Swami Vivekanandaji was actually, I was very close to him. I spent years in Chibuko close to him. I was kind of his companion. We walked, every time I was there, we took our walks and talks. And later in the years when he got infirm, I was blessed to try to be there as much as I could to care for him. And, Swami Vivekanandaji became a monk, very early. He was in the 40s. He was one of the first people that went to Chibuko ashram. He became and I've got his biography one of these days. I'll do a background on Swami Yogesh, but I won't try to do too much here because of time constraints. But he was an amazing person. He was a Sanskrit scholar. He knew Bengali. He was a farm boy. I mean, he was from the Midwest, and he wasn't really an educated person. He actually was in Europe. But he basically was connected, had a strong connection to Vedanta when he was a really young man. And he had blessings to be with some of the senior swamis. I'll give you their names. I don't want to misrepresent who they exactly were, but he learned all of these languages. Sanskrit scholar. His notes on Swami P were amazing, legendary. Actually, some of the notes he took on his lectures are prized. And Swami Sarvapriyanandaji has in collection with them and a few of the other swamis. So he was very much a non-dualist. And when I met him in the ashram, it was just a few of us there, and he was retired after his time in Atlanta. There was the most recent place they had been assigned, and of course they loved him and just adored him, and then he finally retired. But he was just a force of nature. He was about 5 feet, for those of you who know him. Cantankerous. I mean, I have so many pictures of us and of him through the years that I posted on Facebook. He's just got this gleam in his eye, and he had such a sardonic sense of humor. I mean, his sense of wit and humor was just pure, like, he was really funny. And I mean, he's just 5 foot nothing. We would go on walks, and he'd see a huge branch laying on the ground, and he'd just grab it and start pulling and dragging. I said, Swamiji, what are you doing? And I grab it from him. He goes, no. He insisted that he would do things like that. And this is when he was on a walker, almost. So, I mean, I've got pictures of him after he came. He was basically, they were planning his funeral. I went there. I'll give you the full story some other time. But he was going to go. He was basically, and he wanted to leave. But I kind of pulled him back. We took him off of his morphine and pain medication and got him on natural stuff that he had another year and a half of life because of that. So he literally was at death's door. And I've got pictures of him in a rowing machine with this huge smile on his face after that death. He should have been being buried. He was still back and doing stuff. But he wrote a couple books, Four Lighted Windows. I'll have them upstairs on the senior swamis that he had some time with. And they're very penetrating. He also had a lot of, because he was a Sanskrit scholar and he knew Bengali, he translated a lot of things from the Bengali that we have into the English. But this is a very interesting book, and you probably want to order it right away after I tell you all about it. But I saw this, so of course I knew him very, very well, obviously. At this point, I knew him exceedingly well. I saw this on the Vedanta Press. They said, just released Swami Vivekananda in London by Yogeshanandaji. And I was like, oh, I have to get it. I got it on Amazon. I had it delivered. And I started looking at it, and I brought it to the ashram. And I said, Swami, they put out your book. He goes, what? He didn't know anything. He did it 20 years ago. And basically, it was after they saw it, the powers that be decided to not release it because there's too many personal stories. I'll read about it. It's Swamiji's brother that wrote his reminiscence, personal experience in London with Swami Vivekananda. And it was in Bengali, obviously. And it was just laying there, never had been released and never had been done. And so Yogeshananda found the manuscript and did the translation and turned it in. And apparently, basically, it was buried. They thought it was too too many special things in there, unbelievable experiences and stuff. And you'll see, I'll give you a little hint of what it is. And he was in shock because I didn't know that they didn't ever tell me that they released him. He was so, and I felt really horrible then. I'm like, I'm so sorry. I'm the one to give you this news. But I did have him sign it, which is really sweet. And as you can see, it was later in his later years, but I prize this as one of my prized possessions. So this is, I wanted to give kind of an behind the scenes view of Swami Vivekananda, not the fiery personality that stormed the West and basically bowled over people with his personality and all that kind of thing. And he was, of course, there's stories of him being the fieriest and most cutting, like if he was really berating somebody, there's stories of him being pretty direct and pretty rough on some people. And then there's stories of him being the kindest and the most empathetic person in the world, where his heart was just melting at the sufferings of people. Just, you could see it welling up in his eyes. And of course, the feelings of his feelings for the Indian people as a whole, and the suffering, especially at that time, where there was mass starvations and deaths and all these things that were going on. So his empathy was legendary. But there's a picture of Swami Vivekananda that I think hasn't been released to the public, and I think it needs to be. I think this book is really special, and I'll read you a little bit about the publisher's note, and then I'm just the complete works. You've been doing that. We don't need to go back over that, but I've got a couple things that are really cool that give us a different angle on Swami Vivekananda, a little bit of a special kind of a glimpse of this being that I don't think really is understood very well today, even today. So this is the core idea of the central theme. This is a translation of Mahendranath Datta's, that's Swami Vivekananda's brother, Bengali book, Londoner Swami Vivekananda. The English translation was by Swami Yogeshanandaji, which is what I told you. This book is published as part of Swami Vivekananda Sharda Santi Samanoth. We hope this publication will inspire the reader to study more about Swami Vivekananda. And it certainly should do that for us after you read some of this stuff. So this is the only translation into English that we know of portions of the Bengali book Londoner Swami Vivekananda by his younger brother Mahendranath Datta, who lived with him for much of his time in England in 1895 and 1896. So this is after his first trip to the West, to America. So this is after the Parliament religions and starting the movement in America, so to speak. But he was only there for a short time. So he came to England after that. The book was published in 1937 by Mahendra Publishing Committee, Calcutta. The book's author reports the events and remarks surrounding Swami Vivekananda and his close associates, and also includes his own profuse observations and theories regarding the teachings of Swamiji. The present writer has translated only the first two features reports relevant for us today. So what that means, and Swami Yogesh told me that there was the way that he did it, he was a first-hand, Swami's brother was a first-hand observer of all the things that happened with Swami. So he wrote down pretty much just things that happened. The second thing was that he reported the events surrounding him and his close associates, but then with his own observations. So there was actually commentary and interpretations that Swamiji's brother gave in the original manuscript that were omitted in this book, because Yogeshanandaji thought, well, obviously Swami's brother and Swami, there may not be an exact understanding, let's just put it that way. We didn't want to color the events. So it's kind of interesting. So I wanted to kind of, and I talked to Swami Yogesh at length about that point. And then this material is valuable for not only does it give us what it gives us of Swami Vivekananda's daily life, but also for the light it throws on the lives of Swami Sardananda and J.J. Goodwin. So they all lived together in an apartment in London. So Sardanandaji is an amazing being. And you'll find it's just so sweet when you read the stories that are in here. So I really highly recommend you getting on Amazon and getting this book, or going onto the Vedanta Society press and buying it. And J.J. Goodwin, as I said, was the gentleman who took it down in shorthand all of Swamiji's talks. And so a lot of what we have in the complete works are because of him. Okay, so and the chapter 1 is, this is Mr. Sturdy was an English gentleman who became the devotee of Swamiji, of Swami Vivekananda. So he had met Swami Shivananda in Almora, and as a result of which invited Swami Vivekananda to come to London. Swamiji did not do much work for his visit of 1895 because he was so tired from the American work. Mahendra arrived a week later than Swami Sardananda in that year. Someone told Mahendra that the Sturdy was going to rent the house of Lady Mergesen, who was away for several months. Two Swamis, Miss Muller and Goodwin, moved into it. So Miss Muller is an elderly English lady who was kind of keeping the house, but she was an amazingly fiery person. She wasn't a pushover. She was one of those fiery English ladies. Okay, so it's kind of funny, this mix. So it gives you, sets the scene here. Mahendra refers to Miss Muller as old. She was probably in her 50s or 60s, but back then that's considered old, right? He was living in another town at the time. On meeting Swamiji, Mahendra noticed many changes in his appearance and his voice. When expressing certain feelings, his left hand would clench and release by turns. A friend of theirs from Madras, also in London, said the same. Nareen has a new power in presence. After staying a few weeks in the Margesen house, Swamiji took Swami Sardananda and Mahendra with him on a visit to Miss Muller's home in Maidenhead, called the Meads. A complete description is given of the house and yard. There was also a sort of arbor in which Miss Muller and Swamiji often sat for afternoon tea. One day, when the news arrived of the death of Swami Brahmananda's small son, and remember, Swami Brahmanandaji was married before he became a Swami, and he had a son, and so his wife and son were, so this was really sad. It was heartbreaking, obviously, for a small son to be, and this gives you an idea. Swami Brahmanandaji's small son, Swamiji was visibly affected for some time. About Dharmapala of Ceylon, he said, he was a mere representative with no particular learning. So Dharmapala of Ceylon, this is one of the teachers that was, he went there with only one lecture prepared. When I saw how little he knew, I wondered what to do. Well, Buddha is one of our avatars, I thought, and girding my loins, began myself to tell the people about Buddha. This is Swamiji. One day at 3 p.m., Mr. and Mrs. Sturdy arrived on 2 bicycles, sat and talked about the London plans, rent, etc. They decided to forward money themselves in hope of recovering some later. Miss Muller wore a man's suit in the fashion of London at the time. That's why she was very fiery. Swami Vivekananda also followed the custom of speaking in the language understood by all present. A conversation took place between him and Miss Muller. Swamiji said, I will have a lot of difficult work to do in this life. Compared with last time, there is much more to be done. So he's talking about his last incarnation. Miss Muller, one feels like working for some time, but then it becomes troublesome. Can a person go on working for a very long time? But Swamiji seriously and firmly replied, this time I will work up to my very last moment. Later, he said, in a previous life, I was born as Buddha. Although Miss Muller probably was not much impressed with this, the remark made other listeners wonderstruck, as you can imagine. He said other things about his past births in an excited manner. Then his eyes twinkled and he made fun of it all. Miss Muller had a peevish disposition and could not get along with anyone. Resuming the topic, Swamiji said, well, I have just begun my work. In America, I have just raised 1 or 2 waves. A tidal wave must be raised. Society must be turned upside down. The world must be given a new civilization. The world will understand what power is and why I have come. Compared with the power I showed last time, it will be tremendous. Swami Sardananda put up with many difficulties in Western food and ways. He felt pinched and bound by Western clothes and manners. Mahendra knew it. Before Swami Vivekananda, Swami Sardananda was circumspect. Miss Muller was a vegetarian and was in charge of the housekeeping. This is chapter 2. While at the meads, so you see what I'm saying about this book? It's a little bit amazing, and this is why it was kind of suppressed for a long time, because there's things in here I think that kind of blow your top of your head off if you really think about it. Well, at the meet, and they're casually said. I mean, it's just like, okay. While at the meet, Swami Vivekananda wrote a report to the Brahmavedan. Swami Sardananda was writing it and reading it out to Swamiji in a sing-song voice. Do you think you're reading the Chandi? He said to him. Read simply and clearly. Remember, these are two brother disciples, direct disciples of Ramakrishna. One day he was in a buoyant mood, lighthearted, and a hilarious scene took place in which the two stout Swamis tried to mount and ride a bicycle in the field in front of Miss Muller's house. That day he was his boyish self, all jokes, and sang in a sweet voice a Bengali song. Who set me adrift on the waves of the boat of desire? At morn the boat went floating, and I thought this was the grand play of the water, and the spring breeze would blow sweet. I would go floating by. Swamiji usually wore a collar which buttoned in front, i.e. the ordinary collar. Although a preacher, he did not use the clerical collar, nor did he wear a tie. His jacket came up high and close around the throat. He would tire of monotonous food and would decide to go to the kitchen and cook some hot curries. It was legendary. His hot curries were really hot. It was here that he said to Swami Sardananda, why don't you write a short life of Sri Ramakrishna? Now remember, Sardananda has this Ramakrishna, the great master, right? Miss Muller, so this is the beginning of that. Miss Muller had written to Professor Max Muller for arranging an interview for Swamiji on a fixed day. Swami Sardananda had quickly set to work to produce the desired short life, which he read to Swamiji. The latter made some few alterations, but liked it. The next day, they took the account of the life with them, and when the three went to visit Max Muller. From that, the professor took many incidents into his own writing, and even the language in places. If you remember, Max Muller wrote he included Sri Ramakrishna in his writings, and it was the first English Western person to write about Sri Ramakrishna. And he was a well-known Orientalist, they called him back then, or philosopher. So this is where he got his information from, firsthand from two Swamis that lived with Sri Ramakrishna. They all came back to the Markiston house. It says dates were almost never given. It was a 5-story house. As one entered, on the right front of the parlor, back in a couple of rooms, one of which was Swami Vivekananda slept, and one was a small lavatory. He starts describing about on this one, but this is where it's on the one visitors left middle in the corner between this street and the table where Goodwin would sit and take notes. His back to the room, about 150 people could be seated. So it talks about J.J. Goodwin for the first time. And remember, a lot of what we have is because of him. And he was actually there living with Swamiji. On the next floor, there was rooms for the rooms where Miss Muller's lived. So this is kind of just describing the house and the room. And this is where J.J. Goodwin enters the scene. He had brought all his belongings, he's an American, of course, that's where he met Swamiji. All of his belongings into this room in his bags. He was only 23 or 24 years old, but he looked 35 because he already had a hard life. His heart was very simple and sweet. He loved verbal jousting, and if he got no chance to argue with someone, he wasn't happy. He would say to Swami Sardananda, you cookie Swami, devil Swami, black Swami, you close your eyes and meditate and think, when will it be lunchtime? When will the food bell ring? Can you imagine? Swami Sardananda, a saint, literally a saint, at this American town. I mean, just gives you just an idea of how crazy it was. I mean, we think in terms of sanitary state things, where all these Swami Vivekananda. That's why I love this book, because it really gives you the flavor, the rough and tumble of what was going on and what was created out of all of that. They were very carefree and, in some cases around Swamiji. Let's see, there was something here. Here we go. I'll just finish with this on this. This is really special. If it's too cold, you can turn up the air. Maybe you can turn it up in the other room. Okay, so this is kind of sweet. In the parlor, the ground floor, was a central round table and 4 chairs, a fireplace opposite the door. There was an easy chair near it for Swamiji. Except for sturdy, no one else used it. There was a secretary table. The ceiling had a lotus flower design in gesso, and the lighting was gas. The following hilarious scene is described. Both Swami Sardananda and Mahendra are up in their room with recurrent malarial fever. Swami Sardananda is walking around delirious, rehearsing a lecture. He tells Mahendra, "Are you listening?" You say, from time to time, so I will know. With great difficulty, Mahendra replies, So they're both delirious with malaria. On the day when Swami Sardananda was recovering, Swamiji came in, and Sardananda, falling down before him on his knees, clung to Swamiji's feet and wept like a child. "Make me well, lift off this burden," he said again and again, keeping his head on Swamiji's feet. Swamiji, smiling, said, "Get up, you fat rascal. Just see what the malarial fever has wrought. You will have no lecture, or I will beat you. You will have to lecture, or I will beat you with a stick and throw you down the street from this window. I will send you to the workhouse. Do you not know how much money has been spent to bring them here?" Swami Sardananda replied, "Beat me or do whatever you like. Only make me well, or I will not let you go." "So be it, rascal," said Swamiji. "Now get up." Swami Sardananda stood up like one utterly obedient. "Look," Swamiji said, sitting in my chair in the dining room, "I was building up power. Don't you know how to build up power? But what you have seen I did before your eyes." Apparently, he means that he had done a miraculous cure of Mahendra. Swami Sardananda said, "Fine, you have done well. Set my mind at rest," Swamiji said to Mahendra. "Don't take any more quinine. Take it and throw it away. Willpower is everything. Don't eat any bread today. Let sago go. Take sago milk." And he went away. Swami Sardananda said, "This is not the old Nareen anymore. Today I have seen at first hand how by will the fever of so many years standing has been driven off." This was the day of the first class lecture of 7th. Swami Sardananda used to teach Miss Mueller a bit of Sanskrit. Swami Sardananda and Mahendra went to an Indian Empire exhibition. So it talks more and more about things like this. But I just this is kind of an interesting book, and it's kind of, you have to follow it and understand that what Swami Yoganandaji is doing is translating it and kind of giving you a commentary about what is written, and sometimes the exact words of what is written and what they're saying. So this is, you see Swami Vivekananda heal his brother disciples of malaria in years standing. And it's all kind of a casual thing. He's talking about his past lives, one of which could be very, very shocking to most people if they think about it. So this is the Swami Vivekananda that this book kind of reveals. I won't read any more because I have another part, something else to read too. But I really encourage you to get it and read it. Understand what I'm saying, though, that Swami Yogesh is making it so that you can kind of be an observer of this book and what's going on in the book. And so it's great because there would have been a lot of commentary otherwise, and they took that all out, so you just have narrative now. But I mean, there's things that are just casually written in there that, Swami Vivekananda was a being that was, we don't really credit him so much with what his reality was. I mean, there's stories of him later in life where he just, everybody was clamoring for them to show him Brahman, and he said, "Okay, here's Brahman," and everybody froze because they were experiencing Brahman at that moment. Even Swami Sardananda, who was walking down no, Ramakrishna, as he was walking from the temple, he just froze because he was caught in this whole power of Brahman that Swamiji was talking about. The other thing I think that's very interesting is that Swamiji, if you think about when he started Mayavati, and also when he directed his tomb to be built, it shows that, Swami, Sri Ramakrishna said that he was an aspect of Shiva. He was, it came in I guess they call it a partial manifestation, or manifestation of Shiva. And so and his brother disciples saw him as Shiva. They would say, Shiva will initiate you in the future. And they came to Swami Vivekananda, he got initiated them. So there's stories of this where they equated Swamiji with Shiva directly. So there's so much under the surface in Swamiji. We kind of think of him as this amazing rebel and this being an amazing intellect, brought the idea of Vedanta to the West and all these things. But there was so much spiritual power in him that was really not broadcast at all. And I think that maybe it's a good idea to think about that. One of the things that we're talking about now in the Vedanta Society is the non-dualism with Swami Vivekanandaji and all of these things. So there's two different parts of the Vedanta Society as far as I can see it. And of course, I'm not an expert, but I've been here for a while. You have the typical artis and pujas and the beautiful Divine Mother worship and readings and so on, and Thakur devotion, and all these beautiful aspects of traditional sadhana, bhakti yoga, karma yoga, these type of things. But there's also a really powerful streak in Swamiji of non-dualism, of absolute non-dualism. And he saw that as the combining, the way of gluing everything together in the world, all the religions together, because at the mountaintop, they all meet at that place where there's one reality. So when he came to America, as you probably know, he didn't preach Ramakrishna. He didn't create a Ramakrishna temple right away. His brother disciples were actually very upset about that, thinking, why aren't you preaching Ramakrishna? He said, who am I to preach Ramakrishna? I don't even understand it. Do you understand? Of course, he was being facetious, I suspect. But what he did talk about was the Upanishads and the Vedas, and talked about the non-dualism. He gave the lectures at Harvard, and he gave the lectures to the people at Max Muller, gave the teachings to these beings that really saw the non-dualism of India. And for the first time, these sacred scriptures that were locked away in the ashrams of India and weren't even given to the local people there were now being broadcast openly in the West. So a lot of these scriptures, were never taught openly unless you had all of the qualifications of being a Brahmagyani. So you had to be a complete renunciant. You had to give up all the world. You have to, you had all these qualifications before you were really ripe to be taught Brahmagyana, or the non-dualism. But Swamiji always had that. He always said, if I ever learned something that was powerful, could help people, I would broadcast it from the rooftops. And so that's what he did. So two things. And one is he came here and he really was talking about non-dualism and not creating a cult of Ramakrishna. The second thing, that when he went to Mayavati, obviously, when Mayavati was created, it was supposed to be a completely non-dual retreat, a place in the Himalayas. And he didn't even want a picture, an altar of Ramakrishna there. The idea was to have it just be, the one without any symbolism and so on. And when he came back some time later, he saw that there, somebody had set up a picture of Ramakrishna was doing pujas, and he goes, "Oh, the old man got in here too." He said. Oh, well, this is Swamiji. But something that's very interesting too, when he gave instructions about his tomb, when he was talking about his samadhi, he didn't want any, not even Om. He didn't want any symbol. He wanted it to be completely, non symbolic. He wanted just that pure oneness that was represented somehow. And if you'd see that, so it didn't work out that way. He wasn't able to put forth what he really wanted. And there was some sort of a compromise because obviously most of the samadhis have a picture of the divine being or some image of them, and they're worshipped every day or something like that, right? Thakur has this, we have statues of Thakur and Ma, and some pictures of Ma. But there, so they have a two-story samadhi for Swamiji, if you look at the Lower Mat, and that's those of you who have been there. The bottom is basically with a picture of Swamiji. They do the arti. So that was something he didn't want, but they did it anyway. And the top one is a picture that just has Om. So it was their attempt to kind of fulfill his desire that no, image be there. And so it's kind of interesting that they tried, and it's the best that they could come up with. They couldn't really do what he really wished. So I think Swamiji really is a being that is completely not understood yet. I think the kinds of non-dualism, what he saw, how he saw things, are very, very profound and very, very amazing. That's why I think what's happening now, after all these 100 years or whatever it's been, more than 100 years since Swamiji came, we have teachings like Sarvapriyanandaji, these Swamis, who are teaching more along the lines of what Swamiji was teaching after all this time, really focusing on that and broadcasting it in a major way. And I really think, in my heart of hearts, that this is fulfilling the true mission of the Ramakrishna Vedanta Society, is that, this is what needs to be brought out. This is what's special. This is what brings everybody together. This is what binds everyone. This is what Swamiji lived and died for. This is what he worked himself to almost to death from. And so I really feel that this is special. And that's why when we were talking about, and people misunderstood this, I'm so sorry if you did, but we were talking about with Swami Chandrasekharanandaji and what Swami Chitramanandaji were saying, was that, the essence of the Ramakrishna going forward will be more this idea of this non-dualism that India has that is really unique to India. There is no analog in any Western civilization, religion, of this inner consciousness and this oneness and all these things. All of it is kind of either a God without form that has, like all the powers and all the emotions of a person, but no body, right? That's basically that's Islam and Judaism. Then you have kind of Christianity, which is a hybrid. So they have a non-form God, and then they have Jesus, who's God with a form. So they kind of cater to both sides. And then you have a lot of Western religions that have forms of some being or some God, like you do in India. But what's really special and what really can bring the world together is this idea that is not understood yet, of this one unity of being, and that everybody is at the center and the core of each being is that same consciousness, that same essence. And that's what binds us all together. And there's no varnishing that. And I think that's what Swamiji meant. So that's why when we say that, we don't want to just become another Indian cult of, the personality of Ramakrishna. It's wonderful. And he's the one who brought all of this. But I think I think you take the messenger and miss the message then. And I think that's what Swamiji was talking about, is that, we've got to be careful to make sure that we present and preserve what is really powerful in the message and the specialness of what of Ramakrishna came to. It wasn't just to be worshipped again as another being, divine being, because there's many. You can choose to take a choice. And it's wonderful to do that. But if you can, what's great about Ramakrishna is if you do worship him as a personality and as a human being, the essence of what he was and is comes into you. And that is that non-dualism. That is that pureness that melts everybody together. And there's no judgment. There's no differentiation. There's just this one pure, eternal consciousness of bliss and joy. And this is the wonderful thing about that. So I think that's something that I thought would be interesting. That's why I don't think we need to ever try to edit or try to cut out the truth of what somebody like Swami Vivekananda is. Like this book is a really good indication of there's something really profound there that was never even told to people because we were afraid to say it, and to show it, and share it. And I just don't like, when there's the burn books and all that kind of stuff. So I thought that I was really privileged to be kind of in the epicenter of when this book came out. And it's a very special book. So now there's something else I want to read. And then what we'll do is we'll just chant to Shiva, because in honor of Swami Vivekananda's inner energy. And we'll do Ramakrishna Shanadam, and that will fix us. But Paramahansa Yogananda also was a very closely connected to the Ramakrishna tradition. First of all, he is born in Calcutta, which is the epicenter of everything. One of his first mentors was Mahendranath Gupta, who wrote the Gospel of Ramakrishna, and was Ramakrishna's direct disciple and a very, very highly evolved disciple. And even he, in our tradition, in Vedanta, we don't even talk about really the enlightenment and the awareness that Mahendranath Gupta had. Like, for example, going into samadhi and all. We don't talk about those things. We don't understand he was an enlightened, realized being, and he could transmit that to other beings, to other people. He was a very, very powerful being, and I don't think that's kind of just stated. So what's good about Yogananda is he has a different take. It's kind of a tangential take on all of this. First of all, Yogananda as a boy, because of Mahendra, would go to the Dakshineshwar Kali temple all the time, and they would go together. And of course, Mahendranath Gupta lived it. So you're going there with somebody who basically brings you into the reality of it all. Yogananda also went to Belur Math and met Brahmananda. Brahmananda used to go there, and Brahmananda would say, "Here comes our boy." And the Yogananda would come. And Yogananda met Kalpama, our sergeant, and she actually came to one of his ashrams in Calcutta. So there was a really close connection. Even when Yogananda went back to India, he went to some of the Vedanta centers and sang kirtan and got in ecstasy and all these things. And so there was a very, very close connection between Yogananda, who came in 1920, and Vivekananda, who came in 1893. And they have separate things. I think what Vivekananda brought was not just the cult of Ramakrishna, but also this inner beautiful, it's a beautiful thing that happened. Non-dualism was locked in a time capsule in India. Not even the Indians knew what was there. Most Indians had no idea about it. They were never exposed to it, because you had to have all of these qualifications of being a total renunciant, to have all of these, to be able to even be taught about it. When I first came to Yogeshanandaji, I was starting to talk about non-dualism, and he goes, "I can't talk to you about that. You're a householder." Yogeshanandaji, and he didn't know me, he had just met me. And then after a while, he understood a little more about me. And then, of course, we were very close, and there was no problem. We talked about everything. But this was kind of the thing where it would, this greatest pearl of greatest price was locked away, even from the Indians, even from a lot of the general Indian population. So when Vivekananda brought that to the West, and the Western intelligentsia really appreciated it and loved it and saw the value, then it became popular and very powerful in India. So, remember, this was during the Raj, when, the Christian missionaries were trying to destroy the Indians' faith and confidence in their own religion, thinking that it was, paganism and all these things, and destroying the value of it. So by Vivekananda bringing all of this wisdom to the West and it being validated, and the value was seen and understood by Max Muller and all these intelligentsia that was in America and Harvard Divinity School and all these places, all of a sudden the Indians became, oh wait, this is great, must be important. So it validated and made a renaissance back in India too. So this is really something that, is just playing out now. That's why American Veda, if you read by Philip Goldberg, is a really good book to read, because it's the Veda, the Vedanta, that talks about how Swamiji brought it and how it's now affecting subtly so much since that time. It was like a very important opening of a time capsule that Swami Vivekananda was responsible for. So when he talks about this revolution that's coming, there's a lot of subtle things that we're not aware of. And so that's why I'm kind of interested to share some of the stuff that I came across that may not be common knowledge to the general Vedanta society. groups. But this is something that Yogananda wrote about. Like I said, he had a very close connection with many direct disciples of Sri Ramakrishna. He never met Swami Vivekananda, obviously, but you know, him is a pretty good close second. So this is a time. This is a story of when Yogananda came to America. He started, and then he went back to India only after many years. 1935, in '6 he was back in India, and but from 1920 he was in the States until 1935. So then he only went back to India for 2 years, and then came back to the States. So he lived most of his life in the States versus Swami Vivekananda, who was mostly in India. And a bit in the States. And so he went back to India, and he used to bring, one of the things he used to do is celebrate Christmas in SRF headquarters. And so he was a big lover of Christmas. He was like a child. He'd buy gifts for everybody. And, his main disciple, Rajarsi Janakananda, because he knew Master was like a child, so he'd buy toys for Master, like airplanes. And, back in the 50s and 40s, there wasn't fancy toys, or 30s. So I'd buy these funny little things that the propellers would spin, and they'd just kind of laugh and they'd be playing with them. So he used to buy gifts for everybody. So this is when he returned from India from 1935 and 36, he had a Christmas. The next Christmas, he gave gifts out to everybody. And so one of them, this will tie into Swami Vivekananda now. So he said he was playing Santa Claus. So he was giving away gifts to everybody. So that he gave to a few of the other disciples, and he finally came to a Mr. Dickinson. The next parcel contained a gift that I had brought in a Calcutta bazaar. Mr. Dickinson will like this, I had thought at the time. A beloved disciple, Mr. E. Dickinson, had been present at every Christmas festivity since the 1925 founding of Mount Washington Center. At this 11th annual celebration, he stood before me, untying the ribbons of an oblong package. The silver cup. Struggling with emotion, he stared at the present, a tall drinking cup. He seated himself some distance away, apparently in a daze. I smiled at him affectionately before resuming my role as Santa Claus. The evening closed with the prayers to the giver of all gifts, then a group singing of Christmas carols. Mr. Dickinson and I were chatting together sometime later. "Sir," he said, "please let me thank you now for the silver cup. I could not find any words in Christmas night. I brought the gift especially for you, Mr. Dickinson. For 43 years, I have been waiting for that silver cup. It is a long story, one I have kept hidden within me." Mr. Dickinson looked at me shyly. The beginning was dramatic. I was drowning. My older brother had playfully pushed me into a 15-foot pool in a small town in Nebraska. I was only 5 years old then. As I was about to sink for the second time under the water, a dazzling multicolored light appeared, filling all space. In the midst was a figure of a man with tranquil eyes and a reassuring smile. My body was sinking for the third time when one of my brother's companions bent a tall, slender willow tree to such a low dip that I could grasp it with my desperate fingers. The boys lifted me to the bank and successfully gave me first aid treatment. 12 years later, a youth of 17, I visited Chicago with my mother. It was September 1893. The great World Parliament of Religions was in session. Mother and I were walking down a main street when again I saw the mighty flash of light. A few paces away, strolling leisurely along, was the same man I had seen years before in vision. He approached the large auditorium and vanished within the door. "Mother," I cried, "that was the man who appeared at the time I was drowning." She and I hastened into the building. The man was seated on a lecture platform. We soon learned that he was Swami Vivekananda of India. After he had given a soul-stirring talk, I went forward to meet him. He smiled on me graciously, as though we were old friends. I was so young that I did not know how to give expression to my feelings. But in my heart, I was hoping that he would offer to be my teacher. He read my thoughts. "No, my son, I am not your guru." Vivekananda gazed with his beautiful, piercing, deep eyes into my own. "Your teacher will come later. He will give you a silver cup." After a little pause, he added, smiling, "He will pour out to you more blessings than you are now able to hold." I left Chicago in a few days. Mr. Dickinson went on. I never saw the great Vivekananda again. But every word had every word he had uttered was indelibly written in my inmost consciousness. Years passed. No teacher appeared. One night in 1925, I prayed deeply that the Lord would send me my guru. A few hours later, I was awakened from sleep by soft strains of melody. A band of celestial beings carrying flutes and other instruments came before my view. After filling the air with glorious music, the angels slowly vanished. The next evening, I attended for the first time one of your lectures here in Los Angeles. I knew then that my prayer had been granted. We smiled at each other in silence. For 11 years now, I have been your Kriya Yoga disciple, Mr. Dickinson continued. Sometimes I wondered about the silver cup. I had almost persuaded myself that the words of Vivekananda were only metaphorical. But on Christmas night, as you handed me a little box by the tree, I saw for the third time in my life the same dazzling flash of light. In another minute, I was gazing on my Guru's gift that Vivekananda had foreseen for me 43 years earlier, a silver cup. And then there's a subnote here. Mr. Dickinson met Swami Vivekananda in September of 1893, the year in which Paramahansa Yogananda was born, January 5th. Vivekananda was apparently aware that Yogananda was again in incarnation and that he would go to America to teach the philosophy of India. In 1965, Mr. Dickinson, still well and active at 89, received the title of Yogacharya, teacher of yoga, in a ceremony of self-realization fellowship headquarters in Los Angeles. He often meditated for long periods with Paramahansaji and never missed Kriya Yoga practice 3 times daily. 2 years before his passing on June 30th, 1967, Yogacharya Dickinson gave a talk to the FRF monks. He told them an interesting detail he had forgotten to mention to Paramahansaji. Yogacharya Dickinson said, "When I went up to the lecture platform in Chicago to speak to Swami Vivekananda, before I could greet him, he said, 'Young man, I want you to stay out of the water.'" So, I think it's really, really neat to understand, we kind of tend to see our lives in 2 dimensions and that we're making these efforts and we're meditating and we're doing spiritual exercises and we're hanging out with this kind of energy and this beings and all these things. But there's so much undercurrent that goes on, so much happening that we are not aware of. And I think it's important when we see the times that we're going into now and such disharmony and such anger and hate and judgment and like we're going back into World War II times, with some of the things that are being done and said. There's an undercurrent of spiritual being that is guiding things and that has the direction of what's going on, and there's a purpose for all of these things. And I think we really need to celebrate, the real being that is a Vivekananda, the real being that is a Krishna. I really think that is something that we need to really start shouting from the rooftops, as I think Swamiji would do. So that's why I took the chance to read these things to you, and hopefully I won't get too much blowback from the powers that be. So thank you all so much, and I hope that was something you enjoyed. And I would recommend definitely getting the book, Vivekanada in London by Yogeshanandaji. I think you'll enjoy the whole book. It's got a lot going on for it. So let's just do a couple of chants, and then we can finish today. I know all of you are reading your sections. If anybody has questions about which pages and all that, we can kind of clarify that. But just contact us. And remember, next weekend is Swami Chandrasekharanandaji. So he's such a sweet being, such a marvelous being. You'll love him. He was here before, but Friday and Saturday. So Fridays at 6 p.m. he'll do a satsang, and Saturday we'll start at I believe I said 5, and we'll do some kirtan. And I think the Dura will be here at the same, and then Swamiji will give a class on the Gita, which is wonderful. So lots to look forward to, and then we have Swami Atmavidyanandaji on the following Wednesday again. So lots of lineup. Okay, we'll try to sing Om Namah Shivaya. I should probably figure this this out before. Maybe we won't. Huh. I usually can play these pretty quickly, but. It's not coming to me for some reason. Well, let's sing Ramakrishna Sharanam, and maybe that one will come to me later. You know what we can do? No, we'll just do that. We'll just do that. We'll do Ramakrishna Sharanam because it's already 5:54. We'll do Om Namah Shivaya another time to Swami Vivekananda. But since Sri Ramakrishna is the embodiment of all gods and goddesses, we got Shiva covered too. Ramakrishna Sharanam, Ramakrishna Sharanam, Ramakrishna Sharanam, Sharanye Prabhu. Ramakrishna Sharanam, Ramakrishna Sharanam, Ramakrishna Sharanam, Sharanye. Kripa hi kevalam, Kripa hi kevalam, Kripa hi kevalam, Sharanye. Kripa hi kevalam, Kripa hi kevalam, Kripa hi kevalam, Sharanye. Jai Jai Ramakrishna Sharanam, Ramakrishna Sharanam, Ramakrishna Sharanam, Sharanye Prabhu. Ramakrishna Sharanam, Ramakrishna Sharanam, Ramakrishna Sharanam, Sharanye. Sharanagaituham, 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 Vande. Sharanagaituham, 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 Vande. Jai Jai Ramakrishna Sharanam, Ramakrishna Sharanam, Ramakrishna Sharanam, Sharanye Prabhu. Ramakrishna Sharanam, Ramakrishna Sharanam, Ramakrishna Sharanam, Sharanye. Namo Sri Gurave, Namo Sri Gurave, Namo Sri Gurave, Namo Namo. Namo Sri Gurave, Namo Sri Gurave, Namo Sri Gurave, Namo Namo. Jai Jai Ramakrishna Sharanam, Ramakrishna Sharanam, Ramakrishna Sharanam, Sharanye Prabhu. Ramakrishna Sharanam, Ramakrishna Sharanam, Ramakrishna Sharanam, Sharanye. Ramakrishna, Ramakrishna, Jaya Jaya, Ramakrishna, 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 Jaya Jaya. Krishna, Ramakrishna, Ramakrishna, Jaya Jaya, Ramakrishna, 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 Jaya Jaya, Ramakrishna, 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 Jaya Ramakrishna, 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 Jaya Jaya, Ramakrishna, 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 Jaya Jaya, Ram. Krishna Ram, Krishna Jaya Jaya, Ram Krishna Ram. Krishna Sharanam, Ram Krishna Sharanam, Ram Krishna Sharanam, Sharanye Prabhu. Ram Krishna Sharanam, Ram Krishna Sharanam, Ram Krishna Sharanam, Sharanye. Kripa hi kevalam, Kripa hi kevalam, Kripa hi kevalam, Sharanye. Kripa hi kevalam, Kripa hi kevalam, Kripa hi kevalam, Sharanye. Jai Jai Ram Krishna Sharanam, Ram Krishna Sharanam, Ram Krishna Sharanam, Sharanye Prabhu. Ram Krishna Sharanam, Ram Krishna Sharanam, Ram Krishna Sharanam, Sharanye. Sharanagaituham, 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 Vande. Sharanagaituham, 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 Vande. Jai Jai Ramakrishna Sharanam, Ramakrishna Sharanam, Ramakrishna Sharanam, Sharanye Prabhu. Krishna Sharanam, Ramakrishna Sharanam, Ramakrishna Sharanam Sharanye. Namo Sri Gurave, Namo Sri Gurave, Namo Sri Gurave, Namo Namo. Namo Sri Gurave, Namo Sri Gurave, Namo Sri Gurave, Namo Namo. Jai Jai Ramakrishna Sharanam, Ramakrishna Sharanam, Ramakrishna Sharanam Sharanye. Prabhu Ramakrishna Sharanam, Ramakrishna Sharanam, Ramakrishna Sharanam Sharanye. Ram Krishna Jaya Jaya 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 Ram Ram Krishna Jaya Jaya Ram Krishna Sharanam, Ram Krishna Sharanam, Ram Krishna Sharanam, Sharanye. Ooh, ooh, Jai Shri Krishna. Jai Swami Vivekananda. Jai Shiva. Look forward to seeing you all for Swami Chandrasekharanandaji. Thank you so much.